What the fuck happened to the current generation of consoles? We came from one of the most rich generations to ever grace the industry, and now we reach the half-life of the new one with practically nothing? Something must have happened. Hey guys, Gaba here. Let's talk about the infamous console wars. Why it exists, why this generation suck, and why I'm strangely optimistic about the future. Let's start at the beginning. Why do the console wars even exist? Games are a $1 billion industry right now, and of course, companies want a piece of that pie. The business model of consoles is usually called razors and blades. Sell the razors as cheap as possible to hook customers, and then you profit off the blades. Sounds familiar? But here's the kicker. While consoles can be compared to razors, selling games is a much more complex business. There are thousands of companies trying to sell their games to as many people as possible, and consoles are a great way of reaching these players. But it comes as a price. The platform charges fees for everything: game sales, microtransactions, and subscriptions. These fees are usually around 30%. That's where the money's at. So, to make their platform more enticing for the players and consequentially for developers, consoles fight by offering cheap hardware with as many features they can. But the real hook here, as you might know, are exclusive games. These games are usually generation defining, the best of the best, and it's not for nothing. Developers are sure that the game is made for a specific hardware, which means two things: dramatical decrease in cost with engineering and testing, an incentive to use the console's power to its full potential without worrying about other platforms. Another nice bonus exclusive games developers enjoy is that they don't have to worry about the platform cut and receive VIP treatment from the platform, as it wants the exclusive games to be the best they can be. Okay, but why consoles suck right now? We can all agree that, right? This generation is a major letdown. I think the answer lies in the past, so let's take a trip to the memory lane and do a quick refresher on the console wars, starting from following a huge fallout of a broken deal. Nintendo and Sony came out with two banger systems, both awesome, with gems that people cherish to this day. But the fact is that PlayStation sold more units by a large margin and really damaged Nintendo's partnership with a lot of studios, marking Sony as a real contender in the industry. Here, Nintendo took another hit. The GameCube was an awesome console with some of the best games of the generation, but the lack of multimedia options gave it a handicap that was hard to overcome. The new console from Microsoft, Xbox, was a really exciting move. Having a tech giant becoming a player in the industry showed the world that video games are serious business, and Xbox, along with Halo, basically brought online gaming to consoles. The PlayStation 2 came out first, and its ability to play DVDs at the time was by itself enough for some families to get it. Not only that, but the PlayStation 2 had astonishing games and was the undisputed champion of the generation, being the most sold console of all time. Microsoft starts the generation earlier with the Xbox 360, and the company really shows its fangs. It had its own social network, cross-game chat, new indie games every week, and the best version of just about every cross-platform game. The PS3 starts things very slow. It almost seems like Sony thought it had this console wars thing in the bag. Although the console was a beast, it was $500 for the base version at the time. That's about $750 of today's money. A lot of money. Not only that, but the PS3's architecture was too different, which made development slow and cross-platform games suffer. But it got much better with time and ended up selling more than the 360, although that can be contested as Microsoft stopped disclosing the sales numbers. But in this channel, we don't reward cowardice. Nintendo, injured by the two previous generations failing to repeat the success of the NES and the SNES, decided to take a big risk and innovate. The Wii was a phenomenon. Performance-wise, it's not much better than a GameCube, but designing a motion-based controller and making it mandatory for the system was an inspired decision. It dominated sales, changed the game forever for Nintendo, and forced the competition to scramble and attempt to copy its success. This generation is the beginning of our current downfall. I remember like it was yesterday watching E3 and being excited by the new generation of consoles. What crazy innovation Nintendo would come up with this time? Would the PS4 continue being a peculiar powerhouse? And what would be the name of the new Xbox? All fun questions, but the most important one was, which console would I get this time? After the presentations, the choice was obvious. The Wii U was the most confusing piece of hardware ever presented. The name didn't make it clear if it was a new console or some weird peripheral, and this new innovation of having a screen in the controller didn't have any real killer showcase app, and for a good reason. To my knowledge, there weren't many games that truly justified the screen. A disaster. Microsoft, well, also seemed to have rolled a Nat 1. It focused in presenting all the things that nobody wanted to hear about. Kinetic making a huge deal out of freaking Skype. And the worst of all, the restrictive DRM that made it impossible to share games and make online mandatory. Ridiculous. Sony, on the other hand, knocked it out of the park with the PS4. They listened to the devs and did not maintain the weird architecture, opting for an AMD chip. They did not skimp on the power, however, and still managed to keep the prices relatively low. It was the perfect execution of a new generation of a console, and what the consumers expected. It did its homework and it paid off. It wasn't a hard choice. The other companies dropped the ball so hard. The only reason to get anything other than a PS4 was if you really were a true fan of the other companies. Even Nintendo with their Titan IPs couldn't move much customers to buy their console. And Microsoft, even though I was really looking forward to get an Xbox just to try all the companies, made it very hard to defend their option. This time, Nintendo kicked out the races and it hit the ground running. The Nintendo Switch is not a powerful machine, no sir, it's underpowered, even when compared to the last generation. However, Nintendo stopped caring about power a long time ago, and now it cares about innovation. This time, making home console quality games you can take to go. Albeit a brilliant move by Nintendo, it left a void in the scene. People that wanted to play current AAA games with the best graphics as possible without sacrificing the vibe and ease of use of consoles, and without selling a kidney for a PC. And that void now would have to be filled by Microsoft and Sony. Both companies did the bare minimum. They both came out with powerful and affordable systems, and that's about it. Oh no, I forgot the great innovation of the generation, having a version that does not come with a disc reader. Yay. Xbox had the ball on their court, and they kinda dropped it. Kind of. The truth is that, so far, Xbox has two exclusive games, Halo and Starfield, and both are shared with PC, which I think it's great as a PC owner, but it hurts the chances of me getting a Series S or X anytime soon. Microsoft's get out of the jail card seems to be the Game Pass, and in theory, it's really interesting. By becoming the Netflix of gaming, they are turning the console wars on its head. Don't care about the razors anymore, just rent the blades. To everyone. On one hand, it's very attractive to all parts. Gamers can play games for a fraction of the upfront cost and have an instant huge library. Developers can get more money on the tail end of their games and make deals with Microsoft and get money injection that can be very welcome. And Microsoft gets the games, and more importantly, that sweet predictable income from subscriptions. On the other hand though, gamers don't own shit. Developers can lose a lot of sales, especially if their games don't have replayability, and Microsoft says their service is doing awesome and it's profitable, but at the same time the lack of concrete evidence, even in their investors' reports, is very concerning. But the fact of the matter is that Sony is quote-unquote winning this battle by inertia. And that inertia is the main problem of this generation. With Nintendo and Xbox sort of jumping ship, why would Sony invest hundreds of millions of dollars into making games? It is a huge risk, and with the cost rising, even though we could stand some cuts. It's understandable when these games are considered success when they break even. Without the competition, there isn't much reason to push at all. To make things even easier for Sony, the PS4 still has a lot of players and a lot of good games. By making the new console retro-compatible, they basically have a lot of people buying the PS5 as a PS4 Pro Plus, and that makes their exclusives even worse, since they feel the need to target the PS4 owners and lose one of the characteristics that makes exclusives the best they can be: hardware specificity. Now you might be thinking, who cares? Serves them right. Exclusive games are bad for the general consumer. And at some level, you are right. It sucks to have amazing games that you have to buy a console to play. And this leaves a lot of players without experiencing some of the most awesome games ever. But hear me out. Exclusive games are the ones that push the industry forward. They are the ones with the money and the most incentive to create things that would be nigh impossible to the rest of the industry. And that makes them important pioneers. Okay, but I mentioned I am optimistic about the future. How come? Well, join me and let's make some stupid predictions that will make this video age like milk, starting with Nintendo. The Switch 2 is coming, everybody knows that, but I'm scared. The Switch is an amazing console that really shook the industry, but Nintendo doesn't do very well when they are winning. I think these are the options. They over-innovate and make something nobody wants, which would suck a lot. They pull a PS4 and just make Switch 2 a straightforward, better version of the Switch. More battery, more power, better ergonomics, more exclusives. But being realistic and boring for a second, I think the Switch 2 might be just a Switch Pro. That would also suck. No innovation, no nothing. So not Nintendo. This is the most uncertain future of them all, which makes predictions much more fun and exciting. Xbox seems to be all in with the Game Pass, and that might make the Series S and X the last console of Microsoft, at least for a while. And that might be okay. Game Pass might start getting more games made specifically for it, and maybe someday there might be games that are Game Pass exclusives, or at least early exclusives. And I predict that the Game Pass will come to other consoles, as it's something Microsoft is already pushing for. But that's not the fun prediction. My real prediction is that Microsoft has decided to sacrifice the Series S and X to make something ridiculously awesome in the next generation. You see, we all know that Microsoft bought a lot of huge studios. Games nowadays take anywhere from 4 to 10 years to make. 4 years is about the time we will get a new generation. And that's when Xbox will shine. Imagine a great console with bangers every year from Activision, Blizzard, Bethesda, all exclusives to the new console. Well, it's not for nothing that Sony went to court complaining. I'd be scared too. PlayStation. Speaking of Sony, I think the PlayStation company is dreaming big. The leak for a possible PSP 3, PS Vita 2 tells me that they think Nintendo are cowards and they are taking the battle to them, which is awesome. I also think that this putting PlayStation games on Steam is nothing more than a social experiment. They are seeing if this affects the sales of PS5s. If they don't, it's free money on the table. But if they do, it will be an acknowledgement that PC is in the war, and that has big implications. Should consoles still charge to play online? Can consoles keep delivering the superior cost benefit? But most importantly, exclusive games would be more important than ever. And by the way, I don't think they will let Microsoft play their game with Game Pass without any challenges. It might be stretching itself too thin, but I'm excited to see if Sony can pull everything off. I might be a glass half full kind of guy, and to be honest, it's hard being one in this generation, but I think things will get awesome in the future. More games, better systems, and moving the industry forward. Leave a comment with your predictions. I'd love to see what you think for the future. Follow